So thanks for coming and not going to any of our streams. Just as a warning, set your expectations. There won't be complicated formula, no CDIS conversions, no adaptive designs, no sample size, no oncology studies, nothing like that. What we're going to focus on, what we're going to talk about here today, it's the benefits that pharmaceutical companies can gain from their CRO providers beyond the traditional services that are provided, the extra benefits you can have. And of course, because of those added benefits, we're going to talk about the opportunities CRO companies have to fulfill those benefits. So what else can we do to work together beyond the traditional stuff? Very brief introduction. I work for MDSL International, CRO based down in Maidenhead. Not full service. We provide data management and statistics services. In addition, we're doing a lot more, exactly what Martin says, we're doing a lot more oversight. We provide oversight of other CROs providing to pharmaceutical companies. We tend to specialise with small biotechs or the smaller pharma companies that have either no or very limited statistical support. The other area that's growing as well as the oversight is the consultancy skills. We are providing more and more consultancy to these companies, rather than just, as I say, the traditional CRO data services. My name's Paul Terrill. Following my PhD, I first worked in the agrochemical industry down at Gillett's Hill, helping formulation chemists design and analyse experiments. I didn't really enjoy that job. It wasn't great. And the main reason I didn't enjoy it, I was the only statistician working in that particular area. And I don't know about you, I found that tough. Trying to be the single statistician with no one to bounce ideas off, no one to work with, it's a challenge. You do need support from your peers. So I left that job, and then for a while I was a trainer. I moved north a little bit. I went to Marlow, and I was a SAS trainer. That's where I learnt my SAS skills. I would teach people programming, I would teach people statistics. And that was a great job. Nice team, good people to work with. But I did move on. Then I joined the pharmaceutical industry, first for i3StatProbe. I worked for i3StatProbe as a project statistician for a number of years, then joined MDSL International, and I've moved from the project statistician role to the consultancy role. So that's me. I'll just introduce, well, Steve can introduce himself.
Good morning. I don't have any pharmaceutical statistical experience at all, so please don't bog me down with any technical terms or anything like that. I spent 20 years managing sales and marketing teams of some of the biggest FTSE 100 companies like PepsiCo, Wilkinson Sword, and Georgia Pacific, which you may know as Nouvelle or First Pockets. And so I spent the last 12 years of my corporate career selling toilet rolls. But what it does do is it gives me the opportunity to bring a different perspective to this industry. And what I've seen in statistics and statisticians has been quite exciting. I did have some medical training. I spent 3 years on the front line as a paramedic in the ambulance service and have done my own clinical trials on the effects of alcohol in teenagers on a Friday and Saturday night. I'm keen to share that data with you if you want to understand it. But I'm here to talk to you about the big problem, and we're here to talk about the big problem today within what we believe in the sponsor-CRO relationship. And we work particularly with small biotechs. And for us, we're quite passionate about them. And the biggest problem we find that they experience is that they get seen as a customer, particularly with the bigger CROs. Right? So they get seen as a customer, and their biggest fear is they get seen as a customer as well. And they don't want that. What they want is they want to be considered part of the team. They want someone from the CRO to work with them and be considered part of their team as well. And we've got some great testimonials from clients, and the biggest feedback we get is that they feel that the statistician is part of their team. So I'll challenge you that if you want to start taking some of the limelight from your BD people, then getting involved in the team makes it that relationship much stronger and much more robust. The other issue is we're all aware, or should all be aware, as statisticians, you should be aware of the wider business issue and the wider business model of service, profit and cost that relates around the service industry. It's a set base to deliver a service, cost set base to deliver a service with personnel and offices and everything else. And what we want to do is we want to minimise the cost of setting that base up and then pile in as much as possible on the top to deliver the service, so we can make the margin on top. That's basically how that service model works. But really, what that does ultimately is if you keep piling on the top and the cost of the work you're getting or the value of the work you're getting is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, what you end up doing is ultimately sacrificing quality. I don't know about you, but I'm not keen on that. We're quite passionate about the quality we like to deliver, and I'm sure you are all too. So we don't want to sacrifice quality. What we want to do is find alternative ways where we can add value, and some hints of it earlier on today in this talk, in the last talk, about how you can add value throughout the drug development process, throughout the drug development programs. And if you add that value, then your cost is irrelevant. Your cost just is an investment in the future of that company. And thirdly, the marketplace is getting increasingly more competitive. There are either people from Indian companies, China's coming into the market now, Eastern Europe have been there a long time. There are CROs with teams in those countries being able to compete really competitive, being really competitive in the marketplace. And it's tough. We all have to still be there. But if you're actually a sponsor and you've got that relationship tied in, how do you keep that expertise? That's what you're really after, is that expertise, and still maintain that competitive advantage. Because if you stay with the same CRO, you feel that you're not getting the competitive advantage that you would have if you went to market with each of your trials for bids. That's what that would give you, is that competitive advantage. So somewhere around CRO oversight that Martin was talking about earlier really helps you keep that expertise in-house and allows you to be market competitive as well, from the biotech side of things. I just wanted to give you a brief insight into Statistical Brain as well, from my perspective, from an outside perspective. I joined MDSL a couple of years ago, and honestly, I'm quite horrified at working with statisticians, how close they are to marketeers and consultants, how similar they are. In my view, the Statistical Brain has several key elements. You're strategic, very strategic people. I don't mean this to be a ball you up session. This is not what it's about, but I've got a point to come to at the end of this, which I think is quite important. I think you're very talented, creative. There's a solution that needs to come to, and you're very creative in getting to that solution. You're very resourceful. You're keen to absorb outside learnings as well, whether it be from the industry or from the actual company that you're working with. You're great at nailing the real objective of what they're trying to get to, and you're good at getting to that question. Now, the reason I put those up there is not so you can feel good about yourself, although I'll give you permission to feel good about yourself. The reason I put that up there is so that you understand you've got, for me, a great basis to bolt on some additional skills there and become a hugely valuable resource to your company and your clients, like if you're a CRO. If you're working inside a pharmaceutical company, just out of interest, who here is a CRO, works for CRO? Hands up if you work for CRO. 3, 4, 5 people. Who here works for the pharmaceutical company? So, you're outweighed. Okay, great. But if you're working with a CRO, you have a great opportunity to add value to your partners. If you're working in a pharmaceutical company, you've got a great opportunity to add value to your business, to get a wider role and a much bigger role within your business. And that's what I want to try and emphasize to you. So, we come on to what we call the value molecule, which is where we see the value in the relationship. And I'm going to hand back over to Paul to talk you through that.
Thanks, Steve. Of course, he's quite right. We are good at nailing the objective, and we're good at getting to the question. It's what we've been trained to do. It's one of our skills. We can do that beyond the traditional work. The way I see it from a CRO-sponsor relationship, it's still a package deal. They have a study or set of studies they want to run, and they package it up and they contract some of this work out. If we're lucky, they contract out some of the protocol design, so we have input into it. They'll contract out the analysis plan. They'll contract out the tables, listings and figures. They'll contract out a statistical report or a CSR. The CRO will do this work. They'll gain a lot of experience and knowledge while doing it, and then they pass it back. And if you're not careful, that's the end of the story. Everything that's been done on the phase 1 study, on the phase 2 study, on the phase 3 studies, every investment the sponsor's given and the time the sponsor has to give to the CRO to get them up to speed is potentially lost. They've lost all that information. We work on this side of the area. What we're proposing and what we actually now do at MDSL, the sponsor and the CRO can work together beyond that. I'll pass back to Steve again just to talk about that.
Thanks. For me, I want to get you, just do me a quick favour. I talked about the fact that you're strategic, I like you all to prove me right. So what I want to do is take the blinkers off a little bit and get you to stand back and look at the wider business issue, the market generally. If you spend your time on this side of the value molecule, where investment is cautious, investors are cautious on that side because nothing's proven yet, really, is it? So that, it's a bit of a gamble, they're a bit cautious. Investors are cautious, sponsors are cautious, and quite rightly so. So they're cautious with their money. What are they looking at predominantly? They're looking at the bottom line because they want proof. They want a tick in the box that says, yes, it works. Once the investment's unlocked, and the proof of concept's gone through, confirmatory studies have gone through, once it's unlocked, what you end up is access to this side of the molecule. Now, if you're a CRO, I'm going to tell you that that's where you should be spending your time. We need to be covering the whole drug development program. But that side of the value molecule is where the investment comes flooding in. And equally, we talk about the expertise that you have earlier in all of this side. This is where you can add the most benefit. But I think you have a huge opportunity to add some value there. So this is my view our view as to where you should be spending your time. If you're a pharmaceutical statistician, then this is often where you get very heavily involved. But equally, all the experience gained from the CRO partner in this part is often lost, as Paul said, gets handed over. And what we'd like to see is that you guys who are in the pharmaceutical industry might want to get some support, additional support, to carry that expertise through into the valuable marketing part of the studies as you push that drug to market. So I'm going to hand it back to Paul to give you some examples of really where we think statistics can help.
We're not saying we shouldn't do the left-hand side. Someone has to do it, and CROs are good at doing it, and pharmaceutical companies are good at doing it. What we're trying to say, we can help on the left-hand side. There are gems within the CRO that can help this side as well. A number of examples. I was project statistician for 2 phase trials recently. They went really well. We were very fortunate. We got marketing approval. The drug started selling. The company now wants to market that drug. They want people to use that drug. This was a small biotech. They didn't have any in-house statistical experience. So they wanted to publish. Working with them, with my knowledge of the trial design, my knowledge of the analysis, my knowledge of the key results, we got 2 papers into the New England Journal of Medicine. I became an author. It was great. It worked well. We didn't lose any knowledge. In fact, the work we had to do for the NEJM was harder for me. They were more demanding than the EMA were for getting the marketing approval, which is quite interesting. It was a harder job. But we provided support, I provided support, you can provide the support because you know the studies. Slightly related to that, we help with the marketing people at these biotechs and at these pharma companies. Larger pharmaceutical companies may have in-house statisticians to do that. Smaller ones don't, and the marketeers are there on their own. You and I, we can provide input. What goes on the visual sale aid? How should this drug be positioned to the people who are actually going to push it, the people who are going to sell it? If we've run the study, we know the data. Marketeers sometimes exaggerate or lie even, or don't tell the correct story, misuse the data if you're not careful. Maybe, perhaps they don't, maybe I'm being unfair. We can help control that, at least. The same for conferences. If a company is presenting at conferences, either scientific or for marketing purposes, we can provide input into that as well. It's the same. We have the knowledge and the understanding. As Martin says, we are providing more and more oversight right through the whole process, including we now get involved in bid meetings. We might not be doing the data services, but we sit there and we help assess. It's a lovely position to be in. We help assess the other CROs and what we think of them and which one we would recommend, which is very nice, quite enjoyable. And then finally, just one more example which we get more involved in, and this is part of being part of the team. We've run a study, we've got lovely data sets, we followed the planned analyses, We've done the planned TLFs, but there's lots more information in that data. There's lots more there. We've probably spotted things as we've gone along. As part of the team, we can then go back to them and say, well, hold on, have you looked at this? Why don't we investigate this area further? Why can't we push this way? We protect patents, if you want. There's all sorts of areas we can help as a team within the pharmaceutical industry rather than just pushing it back again once the contract's finished. To get there, Steve will just talk about some of the strategies maybe within your CROs you need to think about to take the blinkers off, as he says, and move in a more consultancy direction as well as a provider direction.
Yeah. So we've given you some examples of how you can do it. Obviously, some of you are sitting there going, well, that's great, I've got some ideas around that and everything else. But how do you implement that within your business? Whether you're even a pharmaceutical statistician or you're actually working for a CRO, how do you go back to the business and influence it? Someone mentioned the word influencer earlier in the questions. How do you influence the business and become an influencer? Well, some of the things I think as a strategy-wise you should adopt, I'm going to sort of just go through very quickly now. So the company, in essence, getting you on board chooses you have a huge amount of investment in your education, for example, to get you to the point of getting a job in the first place. And at that point, the company then further invests in you, with regard to SOPs, how they do stuff, your ongoing education, all that sort of stuff, to do your job, to do your role really, really well. And then what they need to do to compete is to invest time, effort, and energy, doesn't always money, but sometimes money as well, in cost reduction. You've got to get that service to the market as efficiently as possible. And that's what your business will be trying to achieve. Get your service out to the market as efficiently as possible. Now, depending on the size of your business, you may not even be aware of that. You may not even be aware of the squeeze in margins. If you're in a smaller business, you may be wholly aware of that squeeze in margin. And what I'm saying to you is you want to get that added value back into your business, the really exciting stuff that you want to get your teeth into, that you can really demonstrate what I call massive transformational value in the drug development program from a statistician's point of view. You need to shift and encourage the shift of some of that investment back over to education. And I think you want to get it into 3 key areas. So the first area will be your education. We did talk about what I think your core competencies are as statisticians and their impressive set of skills and attributes. We've also heard maybe some of the downsides and the fact that quote about looking down at your feet all the time and everything else. So I would suggest that things like interpersonal skills, things like customer-facing skills, things such as opportunity management or being aware of opportunity skills are things you should be pushing for in your personal development programs. So you can work more effectively because you're client-facing, you're on the front line. BD people aren't there every day like you are. You have much more client time than they do. So if you're there in a position to be able to then interact with them more effectively, understand exactly what their needs might be, able to suggest ideas where you can add value, that's where your relationship will become really integral. So that's the first thing, your education. You need to think a little bit outside the box when it comes to your own personal and your own professional development. Secondly, you need to educate people internally to develop a series of products. Now, I came from, say, 20 years of stuff that goes on the shelf, right? And I'm going to tell you now that people buy stuff that they know, they understand, and they see. It's on the shelf. Pepsi Max came out for a certain target market with a certain message attached to it, and there was no confusion about what it did, right? Where it went, etc., etc. And consultancy services are the same. It needs to be boxed up. It needs to be a product someone can go, yes, I want that. How do I interact with it? What does it look like? What does it cost? What value is it going to deliver me? And you need to educate your business to do that. And thirdly, you need to educate the client and what we would say the partner on the added value you can deliver. Get involved. Ask to be involved. Ask if you can add some time. Do free trials. Get in there and say, look, can I come in and sit on that meeting? I hear it's happening next week. I'd love to be here. Don't worry, it's not on the clock. I'd love to get some extra experience. And then input and be valuable in that when you're in that interaction. So that's our recommendation for how you access the gems within the CRO partner-sponsor relationship. I've been given a nod at the time, so I'm going to open the floor to questions. If anyone's got any questions, please let me know.
Everyone at the back.
Okay, any questions?